Welcome back to the Coach Business School podcast. This will be a short one, but an important one. A topic of conversation within our MBA group, our MBAs, our Marketing and Business for Accredited Coaches, which is flourishing. By the way, the topic of conversation that I wanted to share on this podcast was a really interesting one, and it's all about the name coach. Is it wise to call yourself a coach, or is it more skillful to use something different, a different name that best describes who you are and what you do? That is what we're going to dig into in this podcast conversation today. And don't forget, just before we begin, go to coachbusiness.school if you want to come and train with myself and the team on our diploma, which is a treble accredited diploma in positive psychology and coaching psychology. And if you're already an accredited coach, you can come and join us on our MBA group, which is super cool. We now meet 4 times a year in person for a full day deep dive into all things MBA, as well as all of our diploma students now get invited to 4 events per year in London as all a bonus, as always an extra gift to their training with us. Super cool. We're going to get back to that in another conversation at a later date. But now let's talk about the word coach. We are the Coach Business School, right? So already it's in the title, but almost we have to use the word coach because it probably is the word that most symbolizes what we do. But coach standalone doesn't, because there are thousands of different types of coaches. Not just coaches in terms of mindset, but it could be a football coach, for example, or a swimming coach, as quickly as it could be a coach that drives down the motorway coach. So the word coach standalone can often get misinterpreted straight away. People jump to conclusions as to what it might mean. So we have to prefix it usually with another word. It could be life coach, executive coach. I would say they are the 2 most well-known terms in terms of coaching that most people associate with coaching as to what we do. Again, there's issues with that as well, isn't there? Because lots of people don't really understand what coaching is. I would argue most people don't. Most people assume life coaching is the old stigmatized version of life coaching, which was not very professional. It was more or less people deciding that they'd had some form of success in their life or pretended to have some form of success in their life. And then they made a career of telling other people exactly what they should do, which is not coaching. It's not professional coaching. That's just advice giving, dressed up in the name of I've achieved something worthwhile, so I'm going to just tell you how to do the same thing. And if you do exactly as I do, you'll live an amazing, happy life. Da-da! And that tended to be, I think, the stigmatized version of what life coaching is. But that's not coaching, is it? So unfortunately, we're caught in this slight trap. I think lots of people would need to hear the word life coach to sort of get what it is that you do. But at the same time, that word can be really stigmatized for the same person. So yes, they might have a rough idea of what you do, but they're actually mistaken about what you actually do because you don't tell them what to do. So we're caught in this sort of weird trap in many ways of, doomed if we do, doomed if we don't. So I just want to explore that in a bit more depth and detail so we can get some more understanding around it, because whilst coaching is still unregulated, so we're not chartered surveyors, chartered coaches, for example, or doctors where you have to go through rigorous training and testing as well as be associated with your regulatory bodies. We are really professional in terms of our coaching, and I've set that out right from the start. That's why our course is treble accredited by all the big 3 coaching bodies, ICF, EMCC, Association for Coaching. We didn't need to do that, but we've done that because I think we need a level of professionalism within coaching that historically hasn't been there, and I think it put coaching back. But now, due to positive psychology, which again is at the root of everything that we do, the science of self-help, where I have my master's degree, coaching is becoming way more professional again. And I actually look forward to the day that it does become a regulated profession, because all our coaches, myself included, will be really well positioned for that. Hence why we've aligned with all the big coaching bodies, because I think that's where we'll end up being associated too. Until that happens, there's a lot more, let's just say, flexibility and potential to be misunderstood as to what it is that we actually do in terms of our coaching. So let's come back to the life coach. Is the classic, probably most well-known term that broadly describes what we do, but as mentioned, people are already confused because they confuse what life coaching is. Let's underline that for a second. I think we have a huge role as coaches to continue to educate people as to what coaching is and is not. Most people on this planet have not been coached. So if you actually think about it, a tiny percentile of people have ever even been coached. And I'd say a fraction more think they know what coaching is. So when you actually look at it, most people haven't really got a clue as to what this thing is that we do. Therefore, part of your work as a coach is to let people know, whether that's you sharing information on social media or having a conversation in the lift at work, let people know what coaching is and isn't. And what it is for me is not advice giving. We are here to help people explore their own beautiful minds because they have the answers. No one knows themselves better than themselves, and then create a framework around that to ask them great questions to allow them to explore that beautiful mind of theirs to create a way forward to achieve their dreams and goals. In a nutshell. And then I have a positive approach on that. If that wellbeing spectrum is from -10 to +10, -10 being clinically depressed, +10 optimized and thriving, therapy is in the -10s to 0s. Counselling is probably -3 to +3, so straddles low negatives, low positives. Coaching is 0 to +10. We are the 0 to +10 team. We are going to help you to optimize and thrive. And the way that we do that is not through telling you what to do, it's helping you explore your own brilliant brain. In a nutshell, or your version of that. Now, back to life coach. The label itself, you might find that's beneficial for you because it helps people get them in the rough zone. And we have to utilize it at times to get people in the rough area, but then still educate them as to what actually it is that we do. So executive coach would be similar. I think executive coach definitely carries a lot less stigma than life coach. And by the way, executive coach, life coach, anyone that's ever trained with me will know that I'm not mad on those terms. And the reason I'm not mad on those terms, forget about the stigma, is they're too broad. Straight away, they're too broad. If you try and appeal to everyone, you end up appealing to no one. So one of the more skillful things you can do is become niched. Now, this is where it gets exciting for me. Once you start to niche or get a subgroup, we call them expert arenas, then I think it's a lot easier to look at the name that you might describe yourself as that might actually provide even more clarity. Equally, it's trying to get that balance right so it doesn't create more confusion. For example, in our discussion as part of our MBA, we were talking about Anthony Robbins, for example. Anthony Robbins would be known as one of the, top, I'm going to say life coaches, right? Because most people would describe him as a life coach. But actually, if you look at how he describes himself, it's a life strategist. He's a life architect or strategist. He seems to have played around with those terms. And I quite like that, right? I think that's got a more powerful connotation to it. There's no mention of the word coach, so it's slightly broken down some of that stigma, but it still gives an essence of what it's about, right? It's to help someone design their life. Some of the names that came out of our MBA group yesterday that we really liked, I certainly did, were terms such as life design strategists. One of our coaches wants to work on life design. That's their niche. They've been working on it for over a decade, helping students redesign their life and plan it going forward. They want to bring that into the adult world for those going through transitions in their life. So it could be I'm a life coach or a life design strategist. I think I'd rather work with a life design strategist, is the truth of it. And it makes sense given the niche that she's working in. So I think it's about actually looking at your different arenas that you want to spend most time in and actually being brave enough to reflect on what it is in terms of the label that you give yourself. One of our members is really based predominantly around referral, therefore has no name in terms of does not describe themselves in any way, shape or form. That referral of one client to another, they'll tell them exactly what it is that they do once they're in a conversation with them rather than defining themselves up front for someone. It's done via conversation, right? So we're all wonderfully different. This is the beautiful thing about life and about coaching. And I just really want you to be courageous with this because obviously we train as coaches. So the temptation is to stay in terms of our label as a coach. But there's nothing to say that you can't challenge that thinking and actually create a new term for yourself that best describes what you do that has no mention of coach, or it could be a different prefix that you haven't experimented with before that actually still gets the essence of what you do, but keeps it fresh and maybe free from some of that stigma of life coaching. Or it just gets right to the point and you leave that traditional coach in there, but you change the prefix. For example, I'm working with a book coach right now, right? Makes sense to me. It's a coach that helps me write my book, but it has the essence of coaching. So she's a qualified coach. So rather than her telling me what I should write or editing and changing what I write through great questions, challenges my thinking about what I've written to improve what I do. So for me, that works perfectly, but I understand what coaching is and isn't, and I understand the difference between coaching and mentoring. So back to the overarching theme of today's conversation. What is it for you? Are you a coach? Are you a life coach, executive coach, a book coach, alcohol-free performance coach, or are you a strategist, an architect? What might it be for you? I think this is a really interesting topic. I'd love to see your feedback on this. I think there's loads of scope, especially when you're niched. So when you've got an understanding of the group you most want to serve, I think that makes it a lot easier to think about the title you might give yourself, and if it aligns with that niche, it might make it much more easier for them to understand what it is you do really quickly, as opposed to having to revert back to the sort of, broad brush life coach to get them in the right zone. You could be really specific with it. For example, as mentioned, life design strategist. Oh, see, I like that. It's got that specialist energy to it, and anyone that's trained with me would know I love to get you into that space of being a specialist, not a generalist, because people want to work with specialists. It's one of the secrets to creating a successful coaching business. Okay, hopefully you enjoyed that conversation today. Do give me feedback. I'd love to know. How do you label yourself as a coach or strategist or architect? The more of this information we get, the more we can share it, and hopefully it's beneficial to us all. Keep coaching, keep being fabulous. Your coach, Andy. And if you want to know more about the Coach Business School, go to coachbusiness.school, where you can come and get fully qualified with us as a coach. But I always advise you take our foundational certificate in coaching first. It is a brilliant course that will give you an opportunity to train as a coach. Come and train with me virtually on Zoom. We'll even, as a massive bonus, make sure you get a coaching session, a one-to-one coaching session online with one of the coaches that I've trained. So by the end of that short course, which in terms of its pricing is a no-brainer, you'll get everything you need to know whether you want to pursue a career in coaching. You'll know what it's like to be a coach, to train as a coach, and to be coach. That's the foundational certificate in coaching. It's the place that I recommend everyone begins. If you go to coachbusiness.school, courses, new coaches, foundational certificate in coaching, and I'll get to train with you and we'll get to meet each other in the virtual real world. Let's do this.